we're third generation in the seedstock business, but we're 5 generations now of farming from my great-grandpa Lars, who came from Denmark to farm this area. And every generation had somebody in it that had the grit to make it happen. Is it going to be me for my generation? We'll see. That's what goes through my mind every day when I'm working on the ranch.
Welcome back to another episode of the Building Nebraska podcast. It's a podcast for both dreamers and doers, where we ignite your passion for entrepreneurship right here on the show by showcasing those who are out there in the field getting it done. This program is brought to you by the Angler Agribusiness Entrepreneurship Program, which is located at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. We're near Redington, Nebraska today. You might be wondering, where is Redington at? Somewhere in the Panhandle, David. David Schuler, third generation on the Schuler Red Angus ranch, is our guest today. Thanks for the time, David.
Well, I'm glad you came. Thanks for coming this far.
Redington, near Bayard, Bridgeport. Which one do you call home?
Well, I went to school in Bayard, but my wife is the educator in Bridgeport, so I got to play both fields on this one. I probably will never wear the purple and gold colors, but I'll support her.
Got the rivalry still going?
Pretty hard, yeah.
You've got an interesting story. You and I, obviously, friends. A lot of our viewers will know that. But your story has been told by a lot of people. Let's quick set the stage, though, of what is and who is Schuler Red Angus.
Yeah, so Schuler Red Angus, I'd be the third generation of a seedstock Red Angus producer. Started by my grandma and grandpa back in the 80s when we bought our first Red Angus cattle from the Leachman Cattle Company up in Montana, and been trying to make it in this space for 42 years now of an annual production bull sale. Supplying genetics to mostly commercial cattlemen in the Sandhills in Wyoming, Kansas, right here at this ranch. Everything's home raised. We all do it ourselves. We're cow-calf first. We're cowboys and cowgirls just like everyone else, and we just like to be proud of our breed that we have and proud of our genetics, and hope to better make more efficient cattle for our customers.
For a typical ranch today, a lot of our listeners will know some of these things, but help us out just to get the 101 established. How does a typical ranch make money, and how does that compare to the strategy of somebody like Schuler Red Angus?
Yeah, so the bread and butter that's been around for hundreds of years is you take your calf crop and you harvest it once a year, and you take it to the local sale barn, and you would take that money, and that would be your budget for the rest of the year, and that's the dry bones of it. And since then, we've been able to make more marketing strategies towards those calves, have them all calve in the spring and sell them in the fall, or what have you. And then my job as a seedstock producer is to keep bettering our genetics, just like we would with like corn or soybeans. We're trying to make efficient cattle. We're trying to make them better from conception to consumption. And how we do that is through genetic progress and being hard on our cattle and making sure they can be the most optimum they can be for the range that they're on. And that's what I would hope to be trusted with in our bulls and our heifers, where we would make our money by selling bulls, selling semen, selling replacement heifers in that space. I'm doing the same job my customers are doing. A lot of them are really good friends, and it's an interesting deal.
How long have you guys been doing a production sale, and how did it get started? How has it evolved to where it is today?
Yeah, so there's all those. Let's just start with this. The average age of a seedstock operation business is about 11 months. So if you get past 11 months, you've done a good job.
Say that again. The average
duration? Duration,
okay.
Yeah. Duration of a seedstock ranch is 11 months. So if you get past the first year, you've done something, half have not.
Why do so many fail?
It's so hard to get a client base. Everyone else is buying bulls and heifers or supplying their own genetics for years. You're trying to get their trust. They're buying from the people, not the product usually. And it just takes so much input at the very beginning, so much exposure to make it happen. And we were lucky with at our ranch and our business in the 80s. I mean, the redheaded stepchild of Red Angus was in, let's say, late 80s, early 90s, was the 17th largest breed in the nation. I can't name 17 breeds of cows on the top of my head. So these are the stories that I was told before I was around, but we had to go a long ways to sell cattle. We had to go to Florida, go to Texas, Kansas. Really hard to sell one locally. And because we made some relationships with some ranches down in Florida, we sold most of our bulls on trucks to Florida. Through time, now Red Angus is tied for 2 or maybe 3rd largest cattle species. And now we can sell them locally. We can sell one or two here and there. Most of our bulls leave in trailers that fit 3 or 4 bulls. And we have a lot of customers of that nature. We don't sell many truckloads now. We still have those few cattle ranches, but those beginning years, those 10, 12 years, 15 years, allowed us to be established enough to build our clientele, to buy us time, really, to be in this space. And 42, 43 years now of having an annual production bull sale through droughts, through fires. It's something I'm proud of. I'm proud of the work that was done before me to get here. And I can't wait to figure out what it's going to take to be another 40 years and what's it going to look like.
As you mentioned, you weren't here some of those early days of the bull sale and the production sale.
Yeah.
As your dad's talked about those days and building the brand to what it is now, what were some of the key strategies involved?
Well, finding Susan, that was number one. Mom and Dad are a tag team that's been around since the beginning. And that's first, is how do you make it generational? What can you do to allow this income to be big enough to your kids can come back? The strategies they had, it was not relying on one day of the year to get all the income, whether that's finding FSA payments, whether that's trying ways to like I said, raise cattle or rent out land. They figured out all those things to make their income diversified throughout the year and not just relying on that one paycheck. And that was the biggest thing probably. And through the 90s and then the early 2000s when, I can't remember much. I just remember it being real dry. That was a huge part of my childhood. It didn't rain from 2000 to 2010 really. And we brought in every day a truckload of dry milk just to feed our cattle. I remember that very specifically. So they had to figure out how to feed cattle in this area without the natural feedstuffs. They had to figure out how to market the red-headed stepchild, if you will. We've outgrown that, obviously, hopefully. And I'm very proud of what they've done, the grit they took to make it happen. What they learned from their parents and their grandparents to their great-grandparents, I hope that I can keep that going.
Mm-hmm. As a lot of our radio stations in our company portfolio will have deals called auction time. This time of the year, you hear all sorts of auctions happening and bull sales, not just in Nebraska but across the region. How does Schuler Red Angus stand out, I guess, now here in 2024, soon to be 2025, but over the years, how do you position yourself to be that trusted source for people to buy their future?
Yeah, so I'll answer that in 2 ways. You're dropping into a bucket of bull sales in March, it seems like, and you're part of a large group of folks that are trying to win over the business. And it doesn't happen overnight. That's the first thing. What we try to do is to know that what we do every day is cow-calf centered. You're looking at the owners, the operators, the financial guiders are working the cattle. Just like today, before I talked to you, Bryce, we preg checked our entire running age cow herd. And now I'm here doing a podcast. We don't take the days off. We don't have other ways of making a life. This is our income. This is our way of life. This is going to be hopefully my kids' way of life. And if I have that mentality, I hope that I can connect with others who are thinking the same way. If I can produce bulls, genetics, heifers that make sustainability happen, that make profitability happen, and have the passion behind it, they're going to want to hopefully come this way and hopefully allow us to have some guidance in those herds. And the other part that I've really thought about a lot lately when I'm driving down the roads and stuff is, I think, don't quote me specifically, but the USDA and Farm Bureau says that 80% of the land owned by ag operators is going to change hands in the next 20 years, roughly, give or take 5% maybe. That's going to be a huge change in our clientele. I go to the bull sale now, it's rough. It's usually an older group, right? A lot of canes, a lot of walkers. And what I see is my client base is going to disappear in the next 20 years. So I have to figure out what is my special, unique talent that I can drive into this ranch that's been going on for 42 years now of running these genetics. What can I do to find that next clientele? Whether there's going to be those kids that are from those ag producers. Is it going to be a trust that I'm going to be selling to? Is it going to be a corporate business I'm going to be selling to, or S&P 500 companies I'm going to be selling to? The answer to all that is yes. How am I going to be able to win over that product base? And that goes through my mind every day because that's my challenge that I will have to face.
That's interesting. Never thought about it like that.
Yeah, that you go to the bull sale, it's a little scary for a young guy. I'll be honest.
Challenge.
I think a lot of people see it.
Are most bulls sold in person still, or is a lot of it gone to the way of the video auctions?
I remember our first auction that we had that ability. I think we had one bid, maybe two, but no bulls sold. The next year was one bull. The next year was probably 10 bulls, and then COVID happened. And then it was half our bulls were sold, and over half the bids came online. So COVID definitely pushed that forward. It was coming very fast, but a lot of people had to learn how to use the internet, figure out how to log in, and buy their bulls online. And then they loved it, because just like Amazon Prime, you buy a bull, and 2 weeks later, Butch Schuler showed up at your house with this brand spanking bull that's going to breed your cows. And it stayed there at that level. It hasn't increased much more than that, but I'd say it's about half and half. We found ourselves having to invest heavily in the shipping side of things. It's now expected that we have discounts if you bring your trailer and buy your bull that day, but locally that's just your local crowd. And now we're selling Midwest or in the region to Florida and Texas, those sorts of things. You got to really figure out how you're going to ship those cattle and not lose your butt doing it too, and make it work for both sides.
Yeah, logistics fascinate me, but let's change up the conversation a little bit, David. Here on the Building Nebraska podcast, we've showcased a lot of different stories, and one of the aspects that is interesting about yours is coming back to an established business that is up and running, and you having to make the choice to come back into a family operation. So a couple of different dynamics there. As you were going through school at the university, how much did that weigh on you with your time?
It was everything. I mean, I don't think I ever thought for a day that I wouldn't be back on the ranch. But you see college and you see all those opportunities that are just out there for you. And it's hard to say no, especially when you're younger. I mean, you just think about all those doors and you're afraid you're going to shut those doors. What I found out is those doors don't shut. They just open in different ways. And when I committed to saying, I'm going to come back to the family operation, I'm not just going to say it out loud. I'm just going to do it. And I think, Bryce, you were there for that day when I said it at college, but I don't think I saw it right away when I came home what work was done for this opportunity for me. And every day that goes by, literally every day, I see something more of what my mom and my dad did and my grandma did for me to have this generational opportunity. And I don't take that lightly. I'm very lucky to have that opportunity, and I'm going to do the best I can to make it happen for my kids one day. We're third generation in the seedstock business, but we're 5 generations now of farming from my great-grandpa Lars, who came from Denmark to farm this area. And every generation had somebody in it that had the grit to make it happen. And is it going to be me for my generation? We'll see. That's still out there I guess you're just going to have to tune in for next week. But that's what goes through my mind every day when I'm working on the ranch. And every day that goes by, I know I see it in my mom and dad and how, I guess the load is off that they know someone's going to be here. The jury's still out if I can make it happen, of course. And now I get to not take this opportunity lightly to make it happen for my kids one day.
Mm-hmm. Get into some interest or some deeper personal questions here, so you can tell me to stop asking if need be. But do you, as somebody weighing options, and I guess for you it wasn't really an option whether you ever would, but did you try to set up financially and business speak wise of, hey, I'm coming back on these terms, or because of the way you've grown up, or a lot of those things kind of ironed out ahead of going to college?
Yeah, boy, we wish it was all ironed out, don't we? I mean, they tell you when you go to the classes, take a year off, see your opportunities, come back. That way there's a divide, and it's not just, love that's pulling it. It's more of a financial interest. That's good and all, but I think there's a million ways to skin a chicken, and this thing there is no right answer to. The only thing that matters is that you do it 100%. If you make a plan, great. Do it 100%. Don't be wishy-washy on it. If you come back right away and make that decision, do it 100% and never look back, and you fail forward to those opportunities that come with you. I mean, I'm 6 years back now, maybe starting 6 years, and that's the scary thing is now because I'm starting to lose track of how long I've been back on the operation, of course, but I wouldn't have any other way of flying blindly. I don't think we had a plan. We still probably don't have a plan that is set in stone like many ranches, but I know that I'm going to wake up every day and be here. I know my parents are going to wake up and be here for as long as they can be. And because those foundations are set, the rest is easy to, in the terms of easy as in simple. It's not easy, but it's simple, what we need to do.
you have a certain level of trust. Things will work themselves out along the way. Is
Yep.
that fair to say?
Yeah, exactly.
There has to be some weight on your shoulders, though, making the choice to come back, third, fifth generation, however you want to look at things. I guess what I mean by this is, David, it's celebrating production agriculture today of a generation coming back, continuing the family legacy, but I don't think it's talked about enough that there's always a chance that generation could drop the ball and the legacy family business could shut its doors. Do you feel the weight of that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't know if that's a bad thing.
How do you work past it, though?
Yeah, no, it starts by waking up in the morning, for sure. I think there needs to be a little less, like, ranches are going to come and go, but the land is always going to be here. And in America, I've learned that there's going to be a hardworking family on that land. And if I can have that calming, just something to calm me down a little bit, it's okay if it doesn't work out, because that might be God's way of saying, hey, it didn't work out, but there's another family who wants this opportunity. And that's that family dream or American dream that I still hold on to, that I'll advocate for, of these small family businesses, of how can they continue on below the corporate aspect. Ranching is the last great pioneer in my mind of non-vertical integration. We still have separate beef interests, and we're not all under one umbrella. We're not tied to a supply chain yet, and I will fight for that dream as long as possible, because there's a lot of good that comes from it, and the glass half full mentality of it. Now, that weight is heavy, but God puts on our shoulders what we can control, and I'm thankful that I accept that challenge. It's my drive. I find it as a hobby almost, of this ranch continues on. Like, working 300 cows today, I didn't see it as a challenge. I saw it as wow, this is going to be a fun day to see if we can get this done. And I find that enjoyable.
You were talking about something that reminded me again, listening to our radio stations today on the way out. Somebody who represents the land interest selling land was talking about how land continues to be a safe investment for a safe financial investment for investors. We see a lot of outside investment into the agriculture industry, and perhaps it's just more elevated because of all the information available in 2024. Do you ever think about that in the big picture of agriculture and the sustainability of keeping families on the land?
Yeah, it's going to be in our lifetime that it's going to be, I'm going to be fighting Bill Gates for land, if not already. Especially if you move farther east. We don't see that pressures yet here in western Nebraska as much. We still have our big corporations that are fighting for the land and for hunting rights, mind you. But at the end of the day, someone's got to make that land profitable. These people aren't buying the land to lose money.
Yeah.
They're going to need families that know this land. They're going to need the folks that understand how these economies work and how the geological features work and how the waters work and all that stuff. They're going to still need us somehow, some way. Whether, hey, we lose out on the battle of owning the land outright, but they're going to have to put up a heavy sum to those to make sure this land is profitable. Because there's land in this county that I know of that has been trying to be farmed for, since the early 1900s, just northeast here or somewhere in the county, and it still isn't profitable. So if you've tried to make this land profitable for 100 years, I just find it very interesting that with all the technology in the world that we have at our fingertips, we still can't make a buck on it. And someone's got to do it, and the locals know better than somebody that's not in town, I guess.
Let's start to wrap up our conversation, David. Get some of your big picture thoughts if we haven't touched on them already. But
we got another 20 minutes for big picture? Okay. Yeah.
Where's ranching? Where's the seed stock industry, production sales? Where's all that heading 10, 15 years from now?
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting time of what data we value the most. Right now, it's weaning weights, yearling weights, and pregnancy. I mean, the pounds are king, right? But there's going to be this thing coming down from above called carbon credits. It's going to be sustainability, efficiencies, and we're going to have to find out a way how to measure that. And we have some ability to do that. Heifer pregnancy, dry matter intake, rate of gain. We're going to weigh on those traits. And I'm part of a bigger group of seed stock legacy breeders, if you will. We're going to get together, and we're building this system to weigh all these traits and to find out what is valued on, what does McDonald's want, what does Walmart want, and can we bring value-added product back to our commercial cattlemen? Because that's who I'm working for. That's my number one idea of my business to keep it going, is I need to make them more profitable with these traits. And that'll come. It's not quite there yet. Like, we're still pounds are king. But if they can come to our bull sale and look at these EPDs and the index of those EPDs and say this bull is better for the environment because it eats less and gains more and is more efficient, they're going to want to buy that bull because they're going to make calves out of that bull, and they're going to sell those calves directly to some S&P 500 company, as well as carbon credits down the road, and they're going to get more money for their ranch. And that'll allow them to be profitable, sustainable for their own families. And that is the goal for me.
How do you make sure producers are represented in that conversation compared to corporations? Because I just saw, I get press releases, tons of them every single day, David. Mm-hmm. I just saw a big crop conglomerate with a big animal conglomerate partnering with this end user.
Yeah.
So they're the ones in a fancy boardroom, right, making those decisions. How do you ensure there's a producer perspective in there versus this is the expectation handed to you?
Even in that ad, I thought there was a lot of things wrong with it because they completely missed who they were trying to sell that to. There was no farmer and their kid in that photo. In my opinion, and not just my opinion, but in our studies that we've done, I mean, there's been thousands of dollars put into these studies. People don't buy from these corporations; they buy from the cattle producer, and they want to know the cattle producer. They want to know who they're buying from and what they care, what they need, and what they care about. Because of COVID, there's good and bad, and glass half full over here. They trust us as farmers and ranchers more now than ever in this idea of, if we're just bad for the environment or big ag. They actually trust us a lot more than a corporate. I mean, when you hear the word corporate, people will try to stay away. So when we build all this product, we build these sustainability indexes, we build into these carbon credits, and we build the supply chain with a big company. At the end of the day, the photo on that brand is going to be somebody in a cowboy hat, some girl in a cowboy hat, some family in a cowboy hat. And they're going to need us to tell that story because they don't know how to. And if we needed to do our job of remind them of that and show them the facts, and that is where our consumers will find value in these family farms and ranches, and that'll keep us going.
Hope you're right.
I'm right.
This is an entrepreneurship-based podcast. What's the best piece of business or entrepreneurship advice you've received over the years? 6 years back on the ranch, several in college, obviously.
Don't make a gate tighter than your wife can't open. I'm just kidding. That's a hard question. There's been so much advice, but I think I'll have to just go back to that fail forward mentality. You're young now. I've heard this from multiple people. You're young now. Fail forward 100% now. You'll land somewhere in an opportunity that you will never see coming in your life, and enjoy that to 100%. That's the advice that I really hang on to every day.
Lots of good tidbits. David, thanks for sitting down with us. We appreciate it. David Schuler Red Angus, the third generation here on the ranch near Redington, our guest this week on the Building Nebraska podcast. As a reminder, it is powered by the Angler Agribusiness Entrepreneurship Program, which is located at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. We'll see you back here next week.